Is Airbnb still worth it in 2023? That seems to be the question of the day. I cannot believe I'm going to make this video, but it's something that I wish people were a little bit more honest about when I was starting my Airbnb. So I'm going to show you my actual numbers for my first operating year on Airbnb, as well as my first quarter of my second year so that you can reference how it was different from 2022 to 2023. Let's start with a quick tour of my property though, so that you have a reference point. It's a 3-bed, 2.5 brand new townhome. It's located in my hometown, which is Malad, Idaho. I'm sure you have never heard of it. It is a teeny tiny, small, rural farm town that is in southern Idaho, but look at that view. Malad is located right off of I-15, and so it's actually about the midway point between Salt Lake and Yellowstone. Now, obviously, when I bought this place, it did not come with all of the accent walls. I spent the first 6 weeks of owning it doing that because I felt like it was something that was going to be really important to being successful on Airbnb, was making it aesthetically pleasing. I'm going to make a separate video that goes over all of my starting expenses because that was a lot more than I anticipated, but I will link it in the video description below. This video, we're just going to focus on what I made in my first year. So now that you have a good reference of size and also what my property is like, let's look at the listing. I took all of the photos with my iPhone and I just edited the coloring a little bit to make them a little bit more crisp. Obviously, a lot of people use a professional photographer, but by the point in time that I was starting, I was ready to be done spending money on it. As of August 6, 2023, I have had 72 reviews and I have a 4.99 average rating, which I'm excited about because it means people have clearly enjoyed staying at my place. A couple other quick details that I feel like are pertinent to this video. Malad is obviously not a vacation destination. So if you're looking at doing an Airbnb in a place like Scottsdale or Austin or anywhere, you're gonna wanna do your own research about the trends and the occupancy rates and what would set your Airbnb apart. My Airbnb is very essential. So people stay there because there is nowhere else to stay. There's only 2 or 3 other Airbnbs and a small hotel in the town. I believe I'm the only Airbnb in city limits that has 3 bedrooms and can sleep 6, so I get a lot of families. I get a lot of people that are visiting grandma because grandma doesn't have a big enough home for the family, or they're coming for a funeral or a baseball tournament. There are also people that are staying there because it's about the halfway point, as I mentioned, between Salt Lake and Yellowstone. So in the summer, I get a lot of people traveling through. I also will get overflow from a hot springs called Lava Hot Springs, and that's fully booked. And there's one more thing I was going to mention. Oh, I also accept pets. So that is something that has been helpful as well. If people are passing through on that main interstate, it is one of the only places that they could pull off and sleep with a pet. But oftentimes those people are stopping, they're sleeping, and then they're taking off first thing in the morning. I have been very, very lucky with my guests. I've had hardly any bad guests. Nothing serious has been broken or damaged, and I do believe it's because it is in a unique area. Okay, let's get into it. May was my first month of 2022 that I was open. As you can see, the first month was a little slow. That was to be expected. So I had a negative profit of $267 my first month. In June, I turned my first profit of around $150, and then July did really well, finishing with $1,168.60 in profit. August and September were both profitable months, with August ending at $733 and September $362. I believe I would have been profitable in October, but I actually agreed to let someone stay for a month and I discounted the rate way too much and ended up with a negative balance of $72 for that month. You live and learn. So now I will not do very discounted monthly stays. I was a little worried about how fall and winter were going to go, but it ended up okay. And mostly the reason was that I had general contractors who are working on a building in the town. They stayed with me via Airbnb once and then reached out to me about making an arrangement off app. And so they would stay the majority of the week, and then my weekends would open for bookings. So that led me to be profitable in November, December, and January. This last quarter kind of surprised me. February was fine, but March and April were really slow. Granted, Idaho is definitely not a spring break destination, but I definitely thought it was going to pick up more in the spring than it did. I pretty much broke even in March and was barely profitable in April and February, but a win is a win. December and July were by far my best months, with November and August being the second. So my total numbers for my first year on Airbnb ended up, my gross income was $26,979. Operating expenses were $21,663, leaving me with a total profit of $5,316. So the question becomes, is $5,000 really worth all of the work that goes into running an Airbnb? Well, there is another income and profit that you need to take into account that you're not necessarily going to see up front, and that is your principal paid on your home as well as the appreciation. So my total principal, since most of it goes to interest, was $2,800.06, and my appreciation of my home, even though there has been a downturn in the real estate market in comparison to other years, they are selling for $25,000 more than they were the year that I bought it. So those two numbers equal $27,806, and if you add that to my $5,000 profit, that comes to a total of $33,122. Even though you are not walking away with that type of cash, it is a long-term investment, and it is kind of playing the long game. Something with my Airbnb too is that since it's in a smaller rural area, it's nice that I have a place where my family lives so I can go there if I want to. But if I were to long-term rent it out, I would only be able to get about $1,200 to $1,300 a month in rent. So I wouldn't be able to fully cover my expenses. Obviously, your expenses with Airbnb are different than if it was a long-term rental, but still, I am walking away with profit as well as the appreciation and paying towards my principal. And I also have a place that I could stay when I want to in the future when I have a family. Right now I just stay at my mom's place, but in the future it would be nice if I were able to stay in my Airbnb. And the last thing I promised to show was how the first 3 months of my second year compared to the first 3 months of my first year. I know a lot of people are saying that Airbnbs are a bad investment and that they're going downhill. That might be the case in some areas, but that hasn't been my experience. May, June, and July were 3 great months for me, all with over $1,000 of profit. If you want to see how this compares to my 2022 numbers, as you can see there was my negative number of May and then slow start to June, and July had done well, but I did even better this year in July. Part of that is because I have been open for a year though, and I have a lot of good reviews and people were able to book farther in advance. Here's a look at the difference in profits from 2022 to 2023, with my totals being $4,126.49 in 2023 in comparison to $1,050.45 of profit in 2022. That's a difference of $3,076.04. Would I do it all over again knowing what I know now? And the answer is yes. Even though I only had a $5,000 cash positive first year, it already is looking like my second year is going to be a lot more profitable than that. I'm also able to build my real estate portfolio, and I'm making more than I would if I were long-term renting it in my unique area of the country. So I hope this video has been helpful for you if you are thinking of starting an Airbnb, or you already have one and you're just curious what your numbers are looking like in comparison to everyone else's. So if you would like and subscribe, that would really help me out, and I will continue to post updates about how my Airbnb is doing throughout the year. And I'm also going to make a video on my actual startup expenses for my Airbnb. I will put the link to that video in the notes of this one. Thanks, guys.